Seat F13 in the old theater where I work has been empty for 60 years. Every single night, right before the last show ends, it's not empty anymore. I've never actually seen who sits down. I've felt it every time. My name's Nolan, and I was 27 when I took a part-time job at the Aurora, a single-screen movie theater in my hometown that's been running since 1947 and looks every year of it. Real film reels. Not digital, a balcony nobody's allowed in anymore, red velvet seats worn down to the wood in places. I needed extra cash between jobs. The owner, an older guy named Gene, who's run the place for probably 30 years, needed someone to do closing shifts. Seemed simple enough. Lock up, sweep the aisles, count the till, go home. The theater's beautiful, honestly, in the way old buildings are, when nobody's had the money to modernize them out of existence. Gene mostly shows discount double features now, old classics on Tuesdays, whatever keeps the lights on. My first 2 weeks were completely uneventful. I liked the quiet of it, actually, closing up alone after the last showing, just me and a building that's outlived 4 generations of this town. Then I noticed the seat. Row F, seat 13, ground floor, off to the side. The cushion sits dented, like someone's been sitting there for years without moving. I fixed it myself the first time I saw it, pushed the foam back into shape with both hands. Next night, same dent, same spot, like my hands had never touched it. I told myself it was just old foam with a memory of its own, worn into that shape by decades of butts in seats, nothing more than that. That excuse held up fine until the 3rd week. Gene mentioned the balcony to me on my 2nd day, almost as an afterthought while showing me the fire extinguisher locations. Roped off, has been for decades, condemned after some structural issue back in the 60s. I asked what kind of issue. He said something vague about the fire marshal and moved on to explaining the popcorn machine instead. And I let it go, because honestly, who cares about a closed-off balcony in a building this old? The first real thing happened on a Thursday, the last showing of the night wrapping up, maybe 15 people in the whole theater by the end. I was doing my usual walkthrough afterward, checking rows for phones and popcorn buckets, when I heard a single seat fold down on its own, all the way over in row F. I looked. Nobody there, just that same dented cushion in seat 13, settling like weight had just been lifted off it a second before I turned around. I stood there a while longer than I needed to, honestly, telling myself it was the seat mechanism itself, old springs letting go on their own timeline. Then I heard footsteps, not in the main floor with me, above me, in the balcony. Slow, deliberate, crossing from one side to the other, in a space that's supposedly been sealed off since before I was born. I didn't go check. I locked up fast that night and told myself I'd figure it out later. In daylight, when it felt like something I could actually handle without my hands shaking. I started asking around after that, mostly to put my own mind at ease and mostly getting nothing useful for my trouble. Gene changed the subject every time I brought up the balcony. A couple of the regulars, older folks who've been coming to the Aurora since they were kids themselves, gave me looks like I'd asked something I shouldn't have. One of them finally talked to me properly. An older woman named Dot, who's been coming to the Saturday matinee for as long as anyone can remember. She told me about a girl named Clara Voss, who used to work at the Aurora as an usherette back in 1958. Clara's job was walking the aisles during the show, checking for trouble, and she always did the balcony herself since nobody else wanted to climb those extra stairs. There was a small electrical fire in the projection booth one Saturday afternoon. Nothing huge, but enough smoke to clear the main floor fast. Clara had gone up to check the balcony for stragglers when it happened. The exit door up there jammed the way old doors do, and by the time anyone thought to look for her, it was already too late. Dot told me Clara used to sit in seat F13 on her breaks, watching whatever was playing instead of sweeping, because Jean's father, who ran the place back then, never minded as long as the work got done eventually. That detail landed heavier than I expected it to, sitting there in a nearly empty theater with a woman old enough to actually remember it happening. That night, closing up, I caught a smell that had no business being there. Faint smoke, the old kind. The smell of something electrical burning rather than anything currently on fire. I checked everywhere. Nothing. The projector, which Jean keeps running old school for the Tuesday classics, flickered mid-reel into a few seconds of footage that didn't belong to whatever film we'd actually been showing that night. Grainy, black and white, a shot of the theater itself, empty seats, decades younger than the building I was standing in. It lasted maybe 3 seconds before switching back to normal. I checked the reel afterward. Nothing on it explained what I'd seen. I told myself after that I was done being careful about it. If something wanted my attention, it had it. I started leaving a little early some nights, honestly, not proud of that, letting Jean think I'd finished my walkthrough when I hadn't fully. That ended on a night I couldn't avoid it anymore. Closing up, empty theater, and the door to the stairwell leading up to the balcony, the one that's supposed to be padlocked, chained, sealed 6 ways from Sunday, was standing open. Not forced, just open, like someone had unlocked it properly and walked through. I stood at the bottom of those stairs longer than I want to admit. Then I went up anyway, because some part of me needed this to actually be finished, one way or another, instead of just living in the corner of my life that the aurora had started to occupy. The balcony was exactly what you'd expect from 60 years of neglect. Dust thick enough to leave footprints, seats collapsed in on themselves in places. And it was cold up there, properly cold, nothing like the temperature downstairs. I stood near the railing, looking down at the empty main floor, at row F, at seat 13 from above for the first time. I said her name out loud. Clara. I told her, feeling a little ridiculous even as I said it, that the fire was out, that it had been out for a long, long time, and that whatever she was still checking the aisles for, she didn't have to check anymore. The cold eased off first. Then, faint but unmistakable, I heard something that might have been a breath let out, slow and long, the kind you let go when you finally stop holding something. I didn't see her. I want to be honest about that. I didn't see anything at all. I just felt the whole balcony go still in a way it hadn't been since I first heard those footsteps. I don't know if that actually did anything. I still catch that smell some nights, faint, gone before I can be sure it was ever really there. Seat F13 still dense sometimes, though less than it used to, and less than it did that first month. Jean still won't talk about the balcony, and I've stopped asking. I lock that stairwell door myself now, every single night, even though I know as well as anyone that it's never really stopped her before.